this morning. Just take a moment to talk about prophets. Just to be clear, I'd like to talk about prophets, not prophets. We'll talk about prophets another time. Prophets are when you get something on top of what you put into it, right? So you put a few bucks in, you make a profit. That kind of profit. Again, that's kind of a topic we don't like to talk about much in church, so we're going to have to talk about that sometime. You know we are. But today, I want to talk about prophets. And prophets are people, in the Bible, they're people who speak for God. That's how we usually know prophets in the Bible. But prophets, they have an interesting way of doing that. And the thing about prophets is it's not like they tell the future. They tell you, honestly, God's view of what's in the world right now. They're not really about the future, they're about right now. And they're able to do that because before they speak, they listen. See, it's not, prophets don't just kind of magically know stuff and then say it. They have to listen first. And they're not listening just for the voice of God that, we always read about in the Bible, right? So-and-so, here's the voice of God, speak unto them, and then they go and tell people what God said. Sometimes being a prophet means hearing God speak in other ways. And that means having to listen not just for the heavenly voice, but the voice of heaven that's here, all around us. And that's what's so interesting about prophets is that when you start to think about how prophets listen to the world and then kind of shine God's light on the things that need to be shown, right? The things that we need to do, the things that we need to take care of, things that are wrong that need to be righted, things that are bad that need to be made good, those kind of things. And then they point that out, but wait, that's not the end. Prophets act too. So they listen, they speak, and they act. And when you think about prophets like that, you know what? We can all be prophets. In fact, one of the things that Moses says, Moses, the great prophet in Hebrew scripture, one of the things that Moses says is that prophets come from the people. They don't just like magically beam in. They come from the people. That means you can be a prophet. I can be a prophet. Everybody can be a prophet. In fact, there are times where everyone is a prophet. You know, when something's happening and you see something happening, you think, that's not right. You're hearing. Now you have to speak. And so you say, that's not right. And then you have to do something about that to make it right, don't you? That's what prophets do. That's what prophets are all about. And prophets are all around us. We know famous people. We know famous people from the Bible, and we know famous people from history that we'll call prophets. But that doesn't mean that you're not one too. We can all be prophets just by listening for God speaking to us in the world around us and then saying something about it and following through on that, taking action on that when it needs to happen. So, that all starts with a really important thing that we sometimes don't like to do. In fact, we're often really good at the talking part. We can be really good at the doing part even. Sometimes the hardest part is the listening part. We're not always really good at that. But listen. Just take a minute or two and listen to the world around you. Because it's going to speak to you. And it might speak to you in nature or music. It might speak to you in the stories you read in the news. It might speak to you in other people speaking to you. Which is why it's so important for us to listen. Not just wait for our chance to say, but to actually stop and listen. That's how we'll know. Is it the voice of God speaking to us? Is it the voice of God telling us, this isn't right, we got to fix it? Is it the voice of God telling us, we could make this better, let's do that? Is the voice of God telling us, compassion is needed here? How will you know if you don't listen?